conscious. Moonlight poured into Kai's eyes, and he looked around the strange bedroom with a terrifying mixture of confusion and anger. He had no idea where he was or how much time had passed, but he knew that he needed to find Nia. Without thinking, he leapt to his feet and burst out of the room, where he found himself in a hallway that led to a flight of stairs. He looked around for a weapon, but all of his belongings had been taken from him, further adding to the sense of violation and confusion which was growing rapidly. None of it mattered, though, as long as he could get out of here, so he bolted for the stairs and began sprinting through the hallways and chambers, knocking over various objects as he went. An alarm bell sounded in the darkness of the early morning, and Kai felt panic rising in his chest. Then he reached a room with many large open doors and lit candles, and a girl, maybe a few years older than him, brandishing a bowstaff, leapt in front of him. "Stop right there!" she cried. Kai knew he couldn't beat her without a weapon. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see an open courtyard through the door on his left. He ran for it, listening for the sound of her footsteps growing closer behind him.
So Kai's running down a hallway, and Anna's chasing him and stuff, and she doesn't actually end up catching up to him, but it's Zane! Kapow! Out of nowhere! They wrestle for a bit, Kai manages to get him off him, and then he continues to run. And boom! Anne finds him again, and then she tackles him, and they have a fight, whatever. But he's too strong, and then she was like, I'm gonna hit you again, and then pow! Cole comes in out of nowhere, and shoves them through a door! Yeah.
Someone else, a very large someone, had tackled Kai, landing them both in another side room, filled with early morning darkness. Two very large arms wrapped around him and lifted him up. He thrashed and kicked and shouted, but Kai was thoroughly immobilized.
"I came as soon as I heard,"
yelled another boy who came running in wearing a blue bathrobe over his blue pajamas.
"I told you to stay upstairs, Jay,"
said the guy who was holding Kai.
"Yes, and I believe I told you to stay upstairs,"
said another person who was coming down the hallway clutching his stomach.
"Well, all of you shouldn't be here,"
the girl snapped.
"I had this under control."
"Sure looks like it to me,"
said the first boy. The girl glared at him.
"Let go of me!"
Kai shouted again.
"I need to get back to my sister!"
He kicked some more, but whoever was holding him was strong.
"Anne, who is this guy?"
asked the man holding him.
"My name is Kai Rayson, and if you don't let me go, I'll—"
"What, you're gonna shout us into submission?"
said the boy in blue. Kai felt a deep, burning anger rise in his chest, and his breathing quickened. Heat began radiating from his neck and his arms, making him sweat a little. His fists were clenched and his eyes were fixed on Jay. The heat grew bigger and bigger, a heat he had felt before, but usually kept under control. Now, however, he let it run wild, and it shot through his veins and down to his fingertips.
"Let me go!"
He yelped as he felt those big arms release him, and he fell to the floor. He barely even realized what was happening.
Ow! How did he do that?
"Fire!"
Kai shook his head and looked down at his hands, which were literally on fire. He screamed and fell back a bit, waving his hands in the air to extinguish the flames, but only spread the hungry fire.
"Don't move!"
the girl shouted. Then, in a split second, Kai was drenched from head to toe in water, which was thoroughly unpleasant after the warm flames. He looked down at his hands, which were back to normal but shaking. Then he looked up. The girl had a spear made out of some sort of shimmering material pointed straight at him. It took him a moment to realize that the spear was made of floating water. He stared blankly and could neither speak nor move. Neither could anyone else.
"Get up. Slowly."
Kai didn't argue. He didn't say anything. He just stared at the floating spear as he rose on shaky legs. The others were staring at her too.
That was like crazy but then splashing, and how did you do that?
Jay exclaimed. Anne seemed to be at a loss for words, same as the rest of them. Well, except Jay.
How did he do that thing with his hands? And he was all like, "Help me! Fire everywhere!"
"We get the picture,"
said Cole dryly. He and Zane seemed to be a little less shocked than Jay. Kai looked down at his hands again. How had he done that? It felt so natural, too. It reminded him of being in the forge.
Perhaps I can be of some assistance.
Everyone turned suddenly to see Master Wu standing in the doorway next to Keaton, who was dressed in her nightclothes and holding a candlestick. Wu was still and calm as a lake, and that calmness seemed to spill from him, easing a bit of the tension in the room.
Sensei Wu,
Anne began.
No need for apologies, Anjing. They would have found out sooner or later,
Said Wu.
Found out what?
Jay asked.
In fact, I believe some of them already know.
The old man chuckled. He shot a knowing glance toward Cole and Zane. Then he walked over to Jay and yanked off the bathrobe he had on and moved over to Kai, who up until this moment had not realized that he was shirtless. He gladly took the robe that Wu offered him, as the water had left him shivering.
Come now. There is much to discuss.